Welcome into the Alabama Bass Trail Podcast presented by Phoenix Boats. I'm Kay Donaldson, the director of the Alabama Bass Trail and the host for this week's podcast. This is the ABT podcast for the week of May the 19th, 2025, or maybe more affectionately referred to as your post Lake Eufaula podcast. It was an amazing time down at Lake Eufaula, and sometimes it's really hard where to start or kind of where to jump in. So I think the only way to do that is to start from the beginning. And the ABT South anglers, I don't know if it was PTSD from the Alabama River or if you happen to listen to the Weiss Lake podcast, but you guys showed up on time, early even. I think there was like 8 or 10 boats in the water when I got to the ramp at 3 o'clock in the morning. You were all in the water. You were all staged up where you were supposed to be. You were ready for takeoff. You were ready for the national anthem. You're ready for takeoff. And I can't tell you how much me and my team truly appreciates that. It may have been one of the smoothest boat checks, takeoffs that we've ever experienced. It was absolutely amazing, and it could not have happened without the ABT anglers in doing everything that they did. It was absolutely amazing. I am going to be clicking around here a little bit on my computer as we talk. I've got a lot of notes here, but I did want to talk a little bit about some things that are on the website and some things on social media as well. So I just want to say, absolutely, it was one of the nicest, most calm takeoffs that we've had in quite some time on the Alabama Bass Trail. I can't say enough about you guys. I know my team was there early. I got to the boat ramp about 3 o'clock, drove right in, got to stop and see the people at Boat Check, went on over to the camper, got the things going that I need to be doing, checking the trackers. And making a little coffee for the team as they're there very early. I want to say a huge thank you to Sugar Walker and Mike Hearn. They bring us donut holes every tournament. They've driven as far from their house to Lay Lake at the championship to bring them to us. Our team looks forward to that, and it really does help because there's not a lot open at 3 o'clock or 2:30 in the morning when we arrive at Boat Check. It's so nice, and they don't have to do that, and they do, and I certainly appreciate that. I want to say that it was a very nice time at Lake Eufaula. We got to go to Cajun Corner a couple of times. I got to visit Jack's, as you probably saw on social media. I got to visit one of my favorite places in the world, the Donut King. I'm sure that'll show up Wednesday when I go weigh in. But I limited myself. I bought 3 donuts, one for me, one for Daniel Montgomery, and one for John Simpson. It was Daniel's birthday, so we got him a birthday donut. But it's hard to walk in that place and not get an apple fritter or a cinnamon twist or something like that. It is absolutely one of my favorite places. One of my favorite stops on the Alabama Bass Trail is the Donut King in Eufaula, and I got to settle my sweet tooth there. So enjoyed our time there. Went to Cajun Corner, went to Rodeos for Mexican food. Got to eat at the state park on Saturday afternoon while it was raining. So all in all, a good trip to Lake Eufaula. But I am going to apologize for anyone who may have ran into me at like 4:30, 4:45 on Friday. I'm sorry, on Saturday. Um, the gnats, like it's just unbelievable how many gnats there are. And they're at the weigh-in stage. They're out in front of the weigh-in stage where the camera people are. They're behind the tanks. They're at the camper. It's just gnats. And after about 16 hours of being around the gnats, my feelings were starting to show. So just the frustration of not being able to talk because they're flying in your mouth, they're getting in your eyes, they're in your ears, they're in your nose, they're everywhere. And there's not a thing you can do about it. That's what happens when you have a lot of vegetation, a great fishery, water, vegetation, all the things that's right there. That's what it is. It's being in the outdoors, and that's great. But 16 hours gets to me, and I love being outside. I love being outdoors. But the Nats got me. I'm not gonna even pretend that they didn't get me. So if I was short with you, I certainly didn't mean to. Miss Cindy Dunn, I hope you're doing well. Miss Cindy served as a alternate with her husband on Saturday, and she got a treble hook buried in her heel. And she was gracious enough to come up on stage with him. She walked down. We got her a seat so he could go take his boat out. I followed up with him yesterday. Ricky said she was a little sore, but she was doing well. But that could not have been, I saw it and it could not have been at the least bit comfortable. So she was a champion as far as I'm concerned. Like she made it through the day. She didn't ask him to come in early. She went through the weigh in, got up on stage, came down. So she's a hero in my book. So congratulations to Ricky and Cindy Dunn for fishing the Alabama Bass Trail Tournament together. As I mentioned, Lake Eufaula showed out. 24-17 is what it took to win the event. Charlie Williams, Michael Smith, now two-time winners on the Alabama Bass Trail. I did some research yesterday as I was sitting outside, and we had 8 bags that went over 20 pounds. You know, the next 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 bags in that 19-pound range. But the really impressive thing was the 40 cut. And I'm going to scroll down here 16.82 to get a check in the Alabama Bass Trail. Of course, Mr. Charles Estes took home that $500. But in years past, it has been between 11.5 to 14.5 pounds. So to see that check line go up to 1682 shows me that the lake is back on the upswing. And I'm really excited about it. And I'm really excited because we're going to be back there in 2 weeks for the ABT 100. A smaller number of boats, a little bit more area to spread out. Will those fish make that transition? We saw on live and we heard it coming across the stage all day. Guys fish shallow and they fish deep. And deep being that 10 to 15 foot range. Some may have fished deeper than that, but our winners, of course, said they fished between that 10 and 13 foot range. So we're going to talk to them in a little bit about their finish on the Alabama Bass Trail and what it means to be two-time winners on the Alabama Bass Trail. But just looking through some of of course, in that top of the field, some of the names that are very familiar on the Alabama Bass Trail, but I do want to talk about those top 2 teams. They're Georgia guys. You've got Charlie Williams and Michael Smith. Frank Bradfield is from Fortson, Georgia. Tyler Morgan from Phoenix City. We know that's right on the Georgia line. Fishes a lot over there. Third place finished Greg Bearden, A.J. McGee. They finished in third place with 22-27. Trinity Miller and Max Haygood. They are from Georgia. They finished in fourth place. They came in early in the weigh-in and weighed in, and really excited for those guys. One of their top finishes on the Alabama Bass Trail. And your current points leader, Zeke Gossett, Ethan King, finished fifth there with 20.84. Well-known guys on this lake, Jay Grogan and Ryan Ingram, 20.74. CJ Knight and Anthony Goggins, we 100% expected to see them inside the top 10. Shane Powell and Tim Fox as well in 8th place. Noah and Cole Godwin have had tremendous finishes on this body of water. We followed them early in live. It didn't shake them at all. They went right to work, had 15 pounds before 9 a.m., put themselves in great position for the Angler of the Year race coming up. We're going to talk about that in just a little bit because we're going to talk about Eufaula by the numbers, and then we're going to go into the Angler of the Year. Matthew Rabin and Kevin Dykes rounded out that top 10. And then, of course, Justin and Mark Mott coming in 11th place. Just a really good teams there. Guys you normally see in those top ranks. And then we saw some guys that struggled. So we're going to talk about that in just a little bit as well. But before we do that, let's talk about the tournament itself. It's the bait report. You know, I talk about this all the time. It's something that the Alabama Bass Trail does each and every week, turns it into the state. I've got it laying here somewhere on my desk. There it is. This is what we turn into the state of Alabama. The format that we turn it in, but I always try to put it down on my notes so I can see it. 216 teams took to the water on Saturday. Again, 225 paid for the event. For some reason or another, they didn't show up on Saturday. So 199 teams weighed in, 173 5-fish limits weighed in, 945 bass were brought to the scales, 924 largemouth, 21 spotted bass. 40 bass over 5 pounds. 2,566.81 was our total weight for the teams weighed in. 7.50, JD Perez and Kevin Gibson took home the the $1,000 for the big bass. 908 fish were returned back to Lake Eufaula. That is more than I would have liked to have seen on dead fish. But we did have two teams that lost aerators throughout the day and had to bring in their 5 fish limits that were dead. So 10 of those are absolutely nothing that we could have done. And I haven't gone through the standings to see how many were counted dead on live. Certainly more than we wanted to see, especially as good as the lake is fishing. So we with as hot as it got, as quickly as it got, I'm not surprised by that number, but it's certainly more than we wanted to see. I mentioned it. Charlie Williams and Michael Smith took home $17,500 for their win. They got the $15,000 first place prize money along with the $2,500 Phoenix Boats payday, highest finisher for being a owner of a Phoenix Boats, the initial owner of a Phoenix Boat. Greg Bearden, he took home $2,000 bonus from AmFirst for having his boat and truck financed with AmFirst. And then again, JD Perez and Kevin Gibson taking home $1,000 for having the big fish of the tournament. And that's a pretty good little payday right there. So we talk about the lake by the numbers. Let's talk about the Angler of the Year race. We saw a ton of changes in that top in the Angler of the Year race. And I mentioned it on live, and I know if Stephen and Rob Lee go back and watch it, they're going to say that I jinxed them. But we talked about Rob Lee, Steve Winslet in the hunt for Angler of the Year. I think they were fourth coming into Lake Eufaula, and I said if they can survive Lake Eufaula, they've got a really good chance heading into Lay Lake to take their second Angler of the Year. For some reason, and it's not like a practice, those guys are there 4 days usually for practice. But it has their number. Lake Eufaula kind of has their number. So let's talk about it. John Brown, Trey Sorrells knew that this was going to be the challenge for them. They actually fell out of first place down to 16th place. Weights were pretty tight toward that 70-ish range. So it'll hurt. So 30, I'm trying to see what my point is here. Oh, they are 36 points out of being in that top 9 though. So they can make that. They can make that up and still make it to the top 9 and make it into the Bass Team Championship. But let's talk about Zeke and Ethan. Zeke Gossett, Ethan King moved up from second place into first place. I don't think that's a shock to anybody. But the storyline is they're 53 points ahead of second place going into Lay Lake, a lake they have a ton of experience on. But the team behind them has a ton of experience there too. Noah and Cole Godwin, they moved up from 7th into second place. They're still 53 points behind Zeke and Ethan. I think if you talk to people in the South Division, they don't expect that Zeke and Ethan will fall, especially 53 points. Maybe they have Angler of the Year wrapped up. But I've said this to Luke and Darian, and I'll say it to you guys. Watching them go head-to-head on Lay Lake the third week of June on live is going to be fun. So I'm looking forward to that. Third place in the points, Frank Bradfield, Tyler Morgan. We got to see Waylon Morgan come across the stage at Lay Lake or at Lake Eufaula. They moved up from 14th place into third place. Brian Adams and Ryan Lloyd moved up from 8th place into fourth. James Willoughby and James Willoughby moved up from 6th place into 5th. Michael Cox, Colt Boyette fell 1 spot down to 6th place out of 5th place. Chad and Chase Schroeder, your winners on the Alabama Bass Trail Alabama River event, moved from 18th place into 7th. Terry Stevens and Gabe Aldridge moved all the way from 20th place into 8th place. And then Andrew Hall and Mike Hall dropped a spot from 8th place down to 9th. Some of the other falls that we saw where Rob Lee, Steve Winslet fell from fourth down to 11th, still very capable of getting back inside that top nine. Zach Harrison, Kristen Harrison, I think currently leading your couples division. They fell to 11th place. They fell to 12th place from 11th place, but again, still have the opportunity to make it inside that top nine, I believe. Joey Davidson, Tullis Lanier, they moved up from 16th place to 12th place. We talked about John and Trey. Chris Rutland, Kobe Carden, a team that has to be favored going into Lay Lake in June. I think they have 4 wins there in June. They are currently sitting in 21st place. Not sure they can make it inside the top nine. They're 56 points out. Going to be kind of tough to make up that kind of ground on the ones that are in that top nine. And then Ken Sessions and Greg Sessions dropped from third down to 22nd place. Going to be hard to make up ground to get to the Bass Team Championship. But just looking through some of the numbers, it's going to be interesting to see how many outside that top nine can crack the code, because there's some good points differences, and everyone inside that top nine have some good history at Lay Lake. So it's going to be real interesting. Looking at the way it is now, it looks like there's 7 teams that have already double qualified with wins and being a lead in the high school or leading couples or whatever. That looks like they're going to qualify, double qualify. So we would drop down 7 numbers. That would put us at 82nd place. It's going to be tight. Some of those guys sitting in that 85th to 86th place in points need someone inside that top 75 to win to help them out. Looking at the Angler of the Year race, I want to talk a little bit about let's talk a little bit about the North race. Mark McKeag and Tim Hurst currently have a 13-point lead over Damian Willis and Tyler Kiker. And let's not forget the third place team, Adam Bay and Chris Colley, who have had some pretty impressive finishes at Pickwick too. Get past the spawn, and Damian and Tyler are pretty dialed. Really, they need to get past the spawn on the Tennessee River to give themselves a chance at Angler of the Year. 13 points is probably not as damning as it sounds. Boat number may hurt that. You heard Nolan, Spencer, Jonathan Reed say they think that Damian might have an advantage by having that later boat number. Damian seems to think that the later boat number may hurt them just a little bit with it being an offshore ledge bite. So, but I don't think you can just look at the top 2 there like you can in the South, because the points difference is very different. It's a 40-point variance. So Damian Willis, Tyler Kiker sitting in second in the points for the North Division. And let me just scroll over here and I'll pull the South Division or the North Division up and see where Adam and Chris are sitting as well. Adam and Chris are at 833, so they're actually 20 points out. Again, it can happen. Chris and Adam have won there before. It was pre-spawn. But if you look at their history, they all have that year that they just really sucked and were in that 160 range. But they're traditionally within 6 to 11 places of each other. Going to be interesting to see. I'm not saying I pick them to win the event. Of course, I wouldn't surprise me. They're all good anglers. I mean, but when you're going up against the Brewers and Mitch Mitchell and the guys that live there, Donnie Beck, Tony Harvey, the guys that live there, it's very hard for me to pick them to win. But I think the points race is going to be really interesting. And when you look at Angler of the Year, overall Angler of the Year, for y'all that are not familiar with that, Alabama Bass Trail pays the Angler of the Year team, the overall Angler of the Year team, a $5,000 bonus, and the runner-up team gets a $2,500 bonus. Both of those teams get free entry fee into the next year, and they both get Garmin prize packs. So it's about an $9,000 bonus for the overall and about a $7,000 bonus for the runner-up team. So pretty good bonus. And right now the record sets with the South leading the North in overall Anglers of the Year. South has 6, the North has 5. So, and actually when you look at Mark and Tim as opposed to Ethan and Zeke, there's only a 10-point difference there. South leading the North by 10 points. So it's going to be interesting. Going to be a lot of fun to watch those two tournaments take place. And unfortunately, Zeke and Ethan will have to sit back a week, or no, yeah, sit back a week and no, Mark and Tim will have to sit back a week and see how Ethan and Zeke do if they are able to take home the Angler of the Year crown. Some people think it might be sewn up as well. I'm just not so sure. I haven't looked at Mark's boat number. I'll talk about it more when we get to that tournament. I haven't looked at Mark and Tim's boat number. I do know only because Damien chooses to remind me quite often of his terrible boat draw that he got for a ledge fish tournament on Pickwick. So, yeah, imagine that, him reminding me how terrible his boat number is. So, but yeah, that's going to be fun. Last 11 tournaments, South beat the North 6-5. And I say beat us because I live in North Alabama, but going to be real interesting. Going to be fun to watch on live for sure, I think. But we got some more business to do before we get to that. We still have an ABT 100 to do when we get back down on Eufaula in a couple weeks. But before we do that, we're going to talk to our winners from Lake Eufaula. And I'm going to say this before he comes on here, and I'm going to say it when I get him on here. Charlie Williams may be one of the most emotional guys fishing the Alabama Bass Trail that you can tell the accomplishment of winning against this field is an emotional thing for him. I remember when he won back in 2020, the championship. It was the first year that we paid $50,000 cash. And I apologize, my phones are ringing. $50,000 cash, and he won the $7,000 Phoenix First Flight money. His boat was new that year, and he won $7,000. And I remember he just kept saying $57,000 and how choked up that he got. And I remembered months after that him sending me pictures of a shop that he built to house his boat, and he did use that with his winnings from the Alabama Bass Trail. But it is an emotional thing for a lot of people. And it is for Charlie. And I love getting a chance to talk to him, not just about baits and rods and reels and all that, but the emotion that goes into the practice time and then the decisions. And I want him to tell you what he said as they went through boat check and went through takeoff on Saturday morning. And it'll make it even a little more cool for you to hear it. So I'm looking forward to having them on here in just a minute. But before we do that, we're going to take just a short break because we got to pay the bills, and we do that with our sponsors. So y'all stay tuned, and y'all promise me you'll come back to the second segment of the Alabama Bass Trail podcast presented by Phoenix Boats, where we'll hear from your winners, Charlie Williams and Michael Smith. Y'all stay tuned.
Research and development is more than just time in the shop for us. It's time out here, sweating the details, making boats that work as well in the real world as they do on paper. From our R&D team to our anglers on the water, we have the knowledge and passion to build you the finest fishing platform in the world.
Welcome back to the second segment of the Alabama Bass Trail Post Lake Eufaula podcast with your winners, Charlie Williams, Michael Smith, two-time winners on the Alabama Bass Trail. Welcome to the podcast, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
It's been a little bit since I've been able to have you guys on the podcast. You said something Saturday, Charlie. What was it that you said as y'all were about to take off?
It's funny. So when we were idling out, you always introduce people and who the past winners and stuff. And we won the championship in 20. So you always, use that, which is awesome. I'm proud to have that. But I looked over at Michael and I said, hey, man, we need to give her something else to introduce us. People's probably getting tired of hearing that. So, yeah.
Well,
that was pretty awesome that we did it.
I didn't know that until after the fact, until you came up to me and told me that after y'all weighed in, and you kind of waited because I think you were like boat 75. So you had a little bit of time to wait through a lot of people and a lot of guys who are known to catch them there.
Absolutely.
So even when I got Michael and went to the trailer for the polygraph, you looked at me and said, hey, don't jinx us. I'm not
That's
sure
right.
this is a good idea. Don't jinx us. Michael's
Yeah.
laughing. But you do get
Mm.
it that it was that it is a special thing to win the Alabama Bass Trail. Um,
Oh.
and I love that. Before we talk about that and talk about your win back in 2020, how many days did y'all practice for this event?
So, what, Michael, you went last Sunday
I went last Saturday in the
or Saturday?
monsoon, and then Friday. Yeah,
So he had 2 days and
yeah,
I had 2 days.
Okay. And y'all practice separately, so that
Yes,
tells us
ma'am.
that y'all practice separately. Boat
Yeah.
75, were
yeah.
you excited about that boat number or did you want an
It
earlier boat number?
it really didn't matter, to be honest with you. I mean, if we would have got a later boat number, we, you know, we didn't really
We had
find
two, three
what,
spots.
yeah, we didn't really find what we thought was the winning school. So we weren't like excited. It's so funny, you know. We got one good bite off of that place. So we didn't know what we didn't know what the day had to hold. We knew we had a bunch of stuff we needed to rotate through, but we didn't know he was gonna catch a bag like that. That joker kissed me when he caught that third one. Look, remember, I kissed him. I kissed him at the, when we won the championship. He kissed me when he caught that third one. I guess he kind of felt it.
I hate that we didn't have a camera on y'all because I
I know,
remember
right?
I remember Darian talking about when he and Hayden won the Gunnersville event that they were just hugging each other and like
Oh
just
yeah,
embracing everything. And he goes, I don't know what people on the lake thought of us, but we just kept hugging each other and hugging each
okay.
other. It's an emotional thing.
It is, man, because you work so hard. You know, and especially for us. So man, when we first jumped on the ABT, we got a second at Lay, we got a second at Martin, we got a third at Alabama River, and then we won the ABT championship. And we kind of thought, okay, we belong here, right? Last couple years, we ain't belonged. We have, we have. I don't know
We've
why.
Michael, you want to say
we've
something about
grown
that?
up too. Yeah, our kids are older, and we got way more stuff.
More
We can't
responsibilities.
spend the time like we used to. Yeah,
Yeah.
That's true.
used
Yeah.
to we had so much more time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, I can tell you
bad.
from someone who had a son playing baseball that coincided with fishing directly. It's tough. It's tough
Yeah.
to set those boundaries and
Yeah,
put family first. And this is a hobby. This is not how you make your living. I can tell, Charlie, you're sitting there at work and I know
That's
Michael
right.
is in the truck at work as well. So this isn't what you
yeah.
do for a living.
Mhm.
And when the rods break or whatever, they're going to be the ones there for you when you get home.
That's
So
right.
I got a chance
Exactly.
to listen to y'all as you're doing your interview with Darian on the Academy Sports and Outdoors Winners Tackle Box. I do want to talk about a little bit about the baits and stuff that you were throwing because one of them that you mentioned is not something we've seen a lot of in the past couple years with forward-facing sonar being so important. So talk a little bit, Charlie, about the baits that you guys used on Saturday.
So we had, traditional baits tied on like a football jig and a big football shaky head and stuff like that. And we caught a couple fish when we first, earlier on that. But then I picked up the hair jig. I guess that's what you're referring to.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an old school thing. So that it's funny. That goes all the way back to you follow back preacher. I got some OG original preacher jigs. They call them preacher
Mm-hmm.
jigs. So I used to go sit at that dude's house while he made them, and I still got a handful of them. Like there ain't but a few people that's got them. Some Davy High, KVD's got some. Ain't but a few people still got some old show enough preacher jigs, and I still put them in a rotation. Ronnie Ray still got some, but so I caught the first big one on that, and then Michael minted up a couple of the big ones.
So he used the freeloader, talked about a VMC setup there. Michael, you
Mhm.
want to talk about that a little bit and how you use the freeloader?
Yeah, so we're just throwing them out there at the fish we can see. they're not suspended fish, just out on the bottom, just throwing it out there and popping it back. And then Charlie just follows where I throw. So he knows he's throwing at fish.
That's
You're
right.
right.
So
Right.
he's just steady throwing another bait right behind me, so we get crossed up a lot of times. We're throwing at the same spot, so.
But two people can't do that forward facing at the same time, right?
Yeah.
So we have to decide who's going to do it. And just so happened that day, he had the freeloader on, I had the big rods. So, like he said, if he throws, I know he done seen something, so I'm throwing beside him.
Well, you talked about using the freeloader. You talked about the hair jig. You talked about using a football jig. Talk about the depth that you were throwing. I know this because I've already heard it, but talk about the depth. And you said you were fishing the bottom. Were you surprised? Talk about the depth that you were fishing first.
Go ahead, Michael.
It was 8 to about 12. It wasn't
Maybe
real
12,
deep.
yeah.
I mean, yeah, maybe 12 at the deepest. Right on the break though. I mean, it was still a ledge, but they were
like if you threw
on the top of the ledge.
If you threw too far, you was in 30.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
they were just sitting on top of the ledge,
but you weren't fishing brush piles or anything like that, like a typical Eufaula type thing. When we think about the fish going into treetops and brush piles, that wasn't what you were targeting.
It wasn't, and we have. I mean, my depth finder and Michael's depth finder both is littered with dots from brush.
Mm-hmm.
But we checked some brush, and all we caught was I think I might have caught a 2.5 pounder in practice in brush, and I don't even know Michael even threw in any brush. But anyhow, I checked it because I was there Thursday, and the quality wasn't there in the brush for some reason. We still fished some yesterday or Saturday, and we caught a bunch of fish, but they were 2 pounders, 2.5 pounders. And these boys don't play. You can't catch 2.5 pounders on Eufaula.
not to take the big Happy Gilmore check. That's for sure.
Yeah.
How many
so
spots?
It's just a clean spot.
How many spots did you run during the day, Michael?
Probably at least 15 or 20, I would say. Just
we didn't stop on that many.
Multiple ones. Yeah, we rode over 15 or 20 probably, but we rotated about 2 or 3 of them, a couple times. So,
okay.
But
all right.
And then we had a couple spots we didn't get time to go to. So we stopped on the last one, and they were there, and we didn't have enough time to catch them off of it. I was kind of ill, but.
Because they was biting.
It was pretty tough.
It was
they were biting. We pulled up.
So did the area you're in get rain? Because we got rain at the state park, but I'm hearing like far south didn't get it.
We was on the tail end of it.
Okay. So was it better before or after the rain? Before,
yeah.
We could have come sit with you at 9 o'clock, Kay.
That was my next question. That was my next question. What time did you have your first limit? And then what time did you have the limit you weighed in?
Probably all about the same time.
I mean,
we called a couple times, but yeah, we could have come hang out with you, ain't no doubt. I started texting you, tell you we was gonna come hang out.
What so what goes through your mind from 9 o'clock to like you were third flight weighing in? So what goes through your mind from 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock?
We got a chance for a mega bag, and we caught so many more fish, but we just couldn't catch another. But we was looking at 30. I ain't gonna lie to you, because 24 that early, my Bubba scales, look, we didn't believe it. I told him, I was like, dude, Bubba says 24, 24.19. And he was like, what? So I said, I got the phone. He said, get the phone out and add it up. That don't. We didn't know if we believed it.
You didn't know if you believed the Bubba scales.
I know, because in my head it didn't make sense. Yeah.
Catching us so fast.
Shaking. He was shaking. I was shaking. It was so funny. We was both like, dude, and we was laughing at each other because we was shaking. We couldn't even tie on, and it was like, you know what? I'm what, 49, and Michael. How old are you, Michael? You old too. Yeah. So, I mean, we've been doing this for a long time, but I said, man, if we ever quit shaking, we going to stop. But it's crazy. It's funny.
Did you just say, Michael, you're old too?
He's old too. That joker's old. He's getting old. He
Yeah.
ain't got all,
I am not
he ain't got,
even going to say how old I am. If you're old at 49 and he's old at 45, you can kiss my foot, Charlie Williams. I tell you that right now. Michael,
Oh,
can you
man.
believe he said that?
oh, he calls me old all the
Yeah,
time.
because I call him old all the time because he's old.
Okay, enough of the
Yeah.
old talk. Enough of the old talk. If y'all win again, I'm not bringing y'all back on. I'm not bringing y'all back on this podcast. Not bringing you back on the podcast.
Yeah.
So you weigh in, third flight, 3:00. You've got to wait now till 4:30. Last flight comes in. What are you doing? I know you went to the campground, got your stuff together, came back, but what are you doing? Like, how do you wait that out?
It was tough.
Ooh.
You know, Michael was in that bus you put him in, so he wasn't as worried about it as I was, but I had to sit out there and sweat it. My phone dinging, people calling. I was on the phone with my wife, and then I was standing over there at the bump sink, and those guys were looking. They were messing with me too, pretty good. They was like 30 more, 20 more, counting it down. So it was pretty. Yeah, I was watching everybody's bag like that's a good bag because there was a bunch of good bags. Eufaula showed out, did it
It
not?
did. It did. It did. We had a
Yeah.
really good tournament. 1682, 1683 or something like that to get a check in 40th place.
Crazy. That's
And
crazy.
in years past, it's been 12 and a half, 13 and a half, 14. To go to 1682, 1683, whatever it was pretty incredible. It's good to see the lake back on an upswing like we saw in 2019. Really, really cool. Well, I know you talk about your wife calling because I remember her calling at the championship in 2020. I said this at the beginning of the podcast, and you weren't privy to what I said, but I did say you might be one of the most emotional anglers that I've ever been around, and that not in an angry, uptight way, but like
Right.
you get it, and it's not about. It is prideful that you won an Alabama Bass Trail, but I want you to talk about that because you talked about Saturday getting emotional, and you talked about even getting emotional watching Pat Slapper win at Bassmasters on Sunday. So talk about that a little bit.
Well, like I said, I used to do this a little, a lot more on the road and stuff. So I understand, what those guys go through. So I'm a fish junkie. I'm a bass junkie, MLF junkie. I know way more stats than you should. But I watch and I cry every time somebody wins along with them because, I mean, a lot of people call me a sissy for it, but whatever. But I understand what they go through. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I know the sacrifices that they've made, that they've put in to win, and I felt the same way. When I was over there by myself by the bump tank stuff, and my wife called and she said, "I think you did it," and I was like, "Yeah, I think so." So it was it's pretty cool, ain't no doubt. But yeah, I am. I'm a crybaby. It is what it is.
It's not. I
I'll catch
love
a big
it.
one on the lake and tear it up. Yeah, I don't care.
I love it. Well, you're old. Who cares? I mean, you're old. You get to do
Right,
that.
yeah, I
They'll
don't
just say
think-
that's you're old. You're just being old. No, I love that because I remember you sending me photos after the championship of you building your new shop for your Phoenix boat with your winnings
right.
from the Alabama Bass Trail,
That's
and
right.
and how much that meant to you. So I love that because sitting back here sometimes we wonder why we do what we do and put up with what we put up with and all the things, and then you have someone, and I know everybody appreciates it. I'm not saying that people just don't appreciate it, but when you have someone like you that understands it'd been a 5-year drought, like you're
Oh,
going on a
yeah.
5-year drought of not having a win, and that
Mhm.
starts playing with your mind and all the things, and you start doubting why you're out here, and you start
I
doubting.
know.
So I can understand that. I love the fact that it's that emotional for you and that you understand that. I mean, I remember you saying it over and over, $57,000.
That's
Not,
right.
because your boat was new. I just remember that. And I hope that you always remember those days with fond memories of the Alabama Bass Trail too, because that's pretty
No
cool.
doubt.
That's
No
pretty
doubt.
cool. Michael, how old are your kids now?
Whew. 18 and 15.
Ooh,
So
I remember those
I guess
days.
18
Yeah,
and 15.
you got a
So
lot going on. A
and
lot going on.
Charlie lives with a bunch of girls, see, so that's you have to watch him about all that crying. That's why I'm the one that gives him so much heck about crying.
Yeah.
How many girls you got, Charlie?
I got three. I got one at second year in college, just finished second year in college. I got one that graduated. We had a graduation party yesterday, and then I got one that's going into seventh grade. So yeah,
Wow.
I do got a bunch of girls.
You do got a bunch of
So
girls. That's okay.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
okay. I love that. I love that.
Girl
Well,
dad.
a girl dad. Hey, I
Yeah.
understand it. I was looking at Tyler Morgan when Waylon come across the stage with him on Saturday, and his whole world has changed, and he's
That's
got a
right.
little bit of an idea about it right now, but
Yeah.
it's his whole
Yeah.
world's about to change.
I
Well, let me
told him
ask,
that. Yeah.
did you? Do y'all
Yeah.
know each other? I'm sure y'all fished
Yeah.
against each other a lot. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
Absolutely. Tyler's a hammer around here. He got to slow up a little bit now, though. He got a kid, but that Joker fishes like I used to fish. He
Mm-hmm.
fishes like 4 days a week.
Yep.
I
Yep.
used to do that.
Yep. I
So
understand. Well, let me ask you this. You've already punched your ticket to the championship with the win. One more
awesome.
tournament on Lay Lake. How are you feeling about Lay Lake, June the 20th, I guess? How are you feeling about that?
I think it'll be an offshore deal. So I think it'll take a bunch of idling to I mean, what Nick and Joe and Kobe and his partner. Them boys is hard to deal with over there because they know that.
Yeah.
But I will put in some homework, and do it. Somebody could catch them shallow, but the only thing about the shallow deal over there is you put 225 boats on the lake Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It hurts some shallow fish.
Yeah.
If we could just show up on Saturday, it could be one. This tournament could have been one shallow if you would have showed up Saturday. But I just think those shallow fish get beat up. That's my take on it, anyhow. I could be
I
wrong.
agree. I pulled in on Wednesday afternoon, probably 5 o'clock Wednesday, and there was still quite a few people in the parking lot on Friday. And they may not, or Wednesday, they may not have all have been Alabama Bass Trail people, but I drove down to the Walmart and back, and there were people at the boat ramp at White Oak and Barber
Right.
Creek and Chihuahua Creek and all that. So there was a lot of people there, and they used a lot of the different boat ramps to go and check different spaces. So it was a lot of people in town for at least 3 days.
That's
So
right.
yeah,
I
it
told
was.
Michael, I got down there Wednesday evening after work. I'm halfway there. I live in LaGrange at West Point. I work in Columbus, so that's halfway to Eufaula. So I just brought my boat with me and went down after work. And I called Michael. I said, "Hey man, you the only dude fishing this tournament that's still working." Everybody was
Yeah.
there already. Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed
Yeah.
that too, just trying to go out and get dinner and that kind of stuff. So I usually DoorDash just because I just sit in my room and work, but I didn't do that in Eufaula. There's not a ton of options to do that with, but I went out and got to see a lot of guys. And Thursday, they weren't really excited about things. I talked to the same people on Friday, and they were a little bit more excited about what they thought they were going to be doing. So it seems like the fishing
Good.
maybe got better during the week. So all right. Well, you can now enjoy the title, and I've already written it beside your name at Lay Lake. Two-time winners on the Alabama
right.
Bass Trail. Charlie Williams.
That sounds
I
way
love-
better. Yeah.
Sounds way better. Hey,
Yeah.
maybe after June we can
Yeah.
say three-time winners on the Alabama Bass Trail.
Yeah.
Would that be
I know.
okay?
That'd be absolutely
Yeah.
okay.
We've only had two teams win multiple tournaments in the same year.
Really? How many
Well,
teams
let me
do
take
you
that
have
back. Three
are-
teams. Three teams.
How many teams do you have that are more than one-time winners?
Probably
Do you know?
8. Probably
Really?
8. Well, Chris and Kobe have 6. Mitch Mitchell
Yeah.
Candler have 5. Damian
Wow.
Willis Tyler Cocker have 3, I believe. Mark and Tim have 3. Let's see.
That is
Rob and Steve have 3, I believe. I think they have 2 on
Yeah.
Martin, 1 on Logan.
Them jokers beat me at Martin.
Yeah. They,
Yeah.
Chad and Chase Schroeder winning the Alabama River. That made them two-time winners. I'm trying to think in the South. Noah and Cole Godwin, they bookended a year
Yeah.
in 2020. They won the first one, won the last one.
That's cool.
Yeah, so there's a couple multi-time winners. Chris and Kobe have the most with 6, and then Mitch Mitchell or Candler McCollum, they have 5, and then Stephen McAvoy and Josh Butts, I think, have 4 wins on the Alabama
Wow.
Bass Trail. So yeah, we've got a few, but
That's
it's
cool.
hard to do, and they win like I think Stephen and Josh have won Gunnersville twice. So it's and then of course I think Chris and Kobe's won Lay 4 times, and they've got to
They
win it.
only, yeah.
Eufaula, and they've got to win at
Yeah.
Lake Martin now. So, yeah, in summertime, that June post bond time, it lays hard to beat them there. But it's going to be
They
interesting to watch
sneaky.
that Angler of the Year race go down with Zeke and Ethan have a 53-point lead. I don't see them falling behind
Oh, they
53
have a
points
53-point lead.
going
Oh,
into
that's
the Lay
awesome.
Lake. Yeah,
That
over the
feels
Godwin
cool.
brothers.
They're gonna go try to figure out how to catch them 12 pounds in a hurry. I
Yes.
guarantee.
But knowing those boys, as competitive as they are, they
They
still want
want
to
to
win.
win.
They want to
I
win the
agree.
15 and the 5 for Angler of the
Yeah,
Year. So yeah,
you're
they're
right.
they're they're very competitive. Well, I want to thank y'all for being on with me, and I want to congratulate you on your second win on the Alabama Bass Trail. Y'all are always so much fun to have on, and you always represent us very well. So thank y'all so much. And from Georgia, coming over here taking
Yes, ma'am.
some of those Alabama boys' money.
That's right.
All right. Thank y'all so
Yeah.
much. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you, Miss K.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
y'all.
You too.
Thank
Bye.
y'all. All right, guys, there you have it. 2-time winners on the Alabama Bass Trail, Charlie Williams and Michael Smith. We'll be back in just a minute on the Alabama Bass Trail podcast presented by Phoenix Boats. Y'all stay tuned.
Big banks only care about one thing: ROI. So when it comes to your small business, you can expect a big no. At AmFirst, we don't just invest in your business, we invest in you and your goals. With great rates on loans, lines of credit to help you grow, and business checking accounts. Because at AmFirst, business is personal.
Welcome back to the third and final segment of the Alabama Bass Trail podcast. I love having those guys on. They are so funny on the sidebar and in the podcast. It's really cool. And I said this earlier, you had Georgia boys in the first and the second places, and you look all the way down through the standings and you see guys from 7 or 8 different states in the South Division. Very humbling to me to see that. And that's why we put that on there, so that you can, at a glance, see who all is participating in the Alabama Bass Trail. So, of course, we've got some dates that we want to remind you of, and we'll talk a little bit about what's going to be going on the Alabama Bass Trail as we're starting to look at the end of the season with 3 tournaments left. There's still a lot going on at the Alabama Bass Trail. So, of course, 12 days from now, the Alabama Bass Trail 100 will open for registration for current teams. They'll have June the 1st through the 10th to register for the 2026 season. And then June the 11th at 5:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. That's Alabama time. I have the hardest time with them Georgia boys over this. It's 5:30 a.m. Central Standard Time, alabamabastrail100.org. Just to remind you of what that schedule looks like, January the 17th, 2026, we will be at Smith Lake in Coleman, Alabama. We'll be going out of the Coleman Park at Smith Lake. And then also June the 6th of 2026, we'll be on Neely Henry Lake in Gadsden, Alabama, going out of Coosa Landing. And then November the 7th, finally giving the guys a break to stay home for Halloween. November 7th at Lake Jordan, going out of probably using 2 different ramps there at the State Ramp and Bonner's Landing. But we'll be back in Wetumpka for that event. So looking forward to that. Registration does open for new teams June the 11th, 5:30 a.m. Central Standard Time at alabamabastrail100.org. That's where you'll be able to register. And then in 73 days, returning teams can register for the 2026 Alabama Bass Trail Tournament Series. They'll go to alabamabastrail.org, click on register, and then start filling in their team ID and PIN number for current teams or returning teams. And then new team registration opens August the 15th at 5:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. You will then just mark which division you'd like to register for, and then the race is on. Reminder, in 2024, it did fill up in 7 minutes. You'll be able to find all the information on registration on our social media channels on Facebook, Instagram. We'll talk about it on the podcast as we lead up to that. So just a reminder, that is 88 days away for new teams to register for the Alabama Bass Trail regular series tournament. So other things that we have going on, we finish the series in June, the third weekend in June. Maybe it's the 21st, I believe. And then just about 3 weeks later, we head over to ICAST in Orlando, where we will meet with our current partners as well as some of our new potential partners that we hope to have in 2026. Then August the 18th through the 20th, I'll be attending the Alabama County Commissioners Conference. And then August the 23rd through the 26th, I'll be at the Alabama Governor's Conference on Tourism. September the 11th and 12th, I'll be attending the Coosa Alabama River Improvement Association meeting there in Montgomery. October the 7th through the 10th, I'll be at the ASA Sportfish Conference. October the 17th and 18th, Alabama Bass Trail Championship on Wheeler Lake, my former home lake in Decatur, Alabama. Looking forward to being there. My daughter works for the city of Decatur in their tourism office, so I'll get to spend some time with her. And then, of course, rounding out our season, November 1st, 2025, ABT on Wilson Lake, a brand new lake for the Alabama Bass Trail. Looking forward to being there. Thank you to the Florence Lauderdale Tourism Organization for being our host for that event. We can't wait to get there. Going to be a lot of fun, and I think we're going to see a ton of smallmouth bass caught. So a lot of fun, lot to look forward to on the Alabama Bass Trail. Seems like my suitcase is going to stay packed for a little while. But I do want to thank you guys for tuning in, guys and gals, for tuning in to the Alabama Bass Trail. As I talked with Charlie off air, a lot of times we wonder why we do what we do. Why do we get up and be at the boat ramp at 2:30? Why do we work till 8, 10 o'clock at night to just make sure someone's name is spelled correctly on the website and all the things? It's because when you see those guys get emotional about a win or a big fish or whatever, or walking their baby across the stage for the first time in an Alabama Bass Trail onesie, when you see that it means that much to them, it reminds you of why you do what you do. And I'm thankful for that. And I'm thankful for the red and green lights on the water. And I'll always be thankful for that. No matter where this life takes me, I will always be grateful for those experiences and those, the times that I've got to experience. It's just been really amazing. And it's been, challenging, but amazing as well. I do want to thank you for tuning in to the Alabama Bass Trail Podcast on your favorite podcasting app. I do hope you will subscribe, rate, and review the show on one of those apps. I do want to remind you to hug your mom and them and hug your daddy. If you got a chance to see your sisters and your brothers and your cousins, love on them as well. Family is certainly who is going to be there in your foxhole when all things go wrong. And hopefully you won't have to experience that, but if you do, you'll understand the importance of your family. Hug your little pets, your fur babies. Give them a little extra treat. Sneak them an extra treat or a little piece of steak, as Wrigley likes to get from my plate. Give them a little extra loving. You're the only thing in the world that they love with all their heart, so give them a little extra loving. I want to say God bless to each one of you, and peace out, and get out and enjoy the great state of Alabama. Y'all have a blessed day.
Thanks for listening to the Alabama Bass Trail Podcast. To learn more about the Alabama Bass Trail, make sure and visit alabamabasstrail.org.